Yo, what's good? Hey, I appreciate the over 23,000, I wish, 2,300 intellectual savages who are a part of the intellectual savage debt free dad community. I appreciate y'all for subscribing, and I'm very thankful and grateful. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that I'm starting to identify as a very disturbing trend. Now, trends are interesting, but of course, this topic has a financial nexus. But I don't know if y'all remember a few months ago, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, there was a story about a celebrity who is a hip hop celebrity who was catching a lot of flack for cutting off his daughter, and she was homeless with grandchildren. So I've identified this pattern of celebrity children. I don't know if sense or if it's a real issue, but it's a weird pattern. I mean, we saw this with Dr. Dre and his daughter. We see this with 50 Cent and his son. And now we're seeing it with Master P and his son. And I mean, Master P and his son, Romeo, were tied at the hip far as I can remember. Y'all seen the thumbnail. If you look at the thumbnail, you can see them currently and you can see them back in the day when Master P pants was mad huge. I put that picture up there because it was funny because I remember I used to have an outfit like that back in the day. But that's neither here nor there. But we're going to talk a little bit about this Master P and Romeo situation, why they're having some strife, and is it all about the money? And what's the deal with this common pattern of black celebrities having issues with their children? And a lot of times these issues are revolving around money. So let's start it. For anybody who don't know, Master P is a hip hop icon. He essentially started from nothing and created one of the most popular, profitable record labels ever to exist. It was like when you had your Death Row Records and your Bad Boy in the East Coast. Master P and No Limit Records was a record company who was running things around the South. As he moved and matriculated out the music, we see Master P do things on television, on movies. We see Master P. He's cornering the market when it comes to unhealthy foods and snack products. He has Rap Snacks, these overly salted chips. He has some type of ramen noodle. He has a cereal called Hootie Hoos. I mean, this dude is a processed food guru, and he is actually was one of the artists who was on our list of top 10 hip hop entrepreneurs. So we've identified this pattern. Let's kind of start at the beginning, okay? Because Master P, along with his three brothers, started this record label from the ground up. Well, this is kind of, I'm going to give you a little background on how this issue between him and his son started. We're going to keep it brief because the question isn't really focused on the beef that they have, but the question is focused on why are we identifying this pattern of black celebrities having issues with their children at time it's revolving around finances. And if y'all don't think it's a pattern, y'all think I'm just making it up, let's go ahead and take a look at the headline. Do y'all remember this story? Dr. Dre was getting blasted because he cut his daughter off, and his daughter was asking for a GoFundMe. She was living in her car. She said that he was obligated to help his grandchildren. What's going on, Britt? I appreciate you tuning in. And so just so y'all know, this is a trend that I've noticed, and this is just over the past 6 or 7 months. So at first we had Dr. Dre and his daughter who had an issue, and I thought like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's a one off. But then what happened a few months ago? Well, just a few months ago, we see another story in the news of a black celebrity entertainer having an issue with their child. Okay. So it's not me. I was like, damn. I was like, Dr. Dre had this issue. Now 50 Cent is having this issue. And before we even talk about Master P and Romeo issue, I wanted to talk a little bit briefly about 50 Cent and his son, because the the issue was that 50 Cent's son came out and said that they only got $6,700 a month in child support when he was younger. So I clearly see your position, Britt. I see your position, and you think it's an entitled privileged child thing, right? I kind of get the sense that that's where you're leaning, that this is an entitled privileged child thing, and all of these celebrities have privileged children who don't do anything when they get old. I'm kind of speaking because I think that that may be what my summation is when we look on all this. So we had Dr. Dre earlier in the year. Then we had 50 Cent and his son, and they were beefing over this $6,700 a month in child support. It was actually interesting because I actually found the video where 50 Cent explained why he stopped doing a lot for his son's mother. And once he explained it, I was like, that kind of makes sense, okay? Because even though 6,700 bucks isn't a lot of money, especially to live in New York, and especially if you're a rapper and your job is to create beef in the rap industry. So I can see how $6,700 may not be enough. But what 50 Cent said in that story was interesting. He said that he went to his daughter, his child's mother, and asked her, "What do you want to do? Do you want to go to school? Do you want to open a business? Do you want to start a boutique?" And her response was what changed his mentality and how he treated her, not necessarily his son, but how he treated her. He said that her response was, "Well, what do I need to do anything for? You're already a millionaire." and, and and of course, that kind of that kind of made him look and think, "Damn, just because I'm on, you're not going to do anything." You don't think Master P's son was spoiled? I don't know. I think Master P's son was spoiled because I think that all of them are relatively spoiled. So that brings us to, again, Dre had issues with his daughter. 50 Cent had issues with his son. Next on the list, you see Master P and his son having issues. Now, I'm gonna give the Reader's Digest version. That was an old ass reference, but I'm gonna give a quick and easy version on how all of this started in the first place. And it essentially started with a message that Master P had posted to Instagram. And the message he posted on Instagram was essentially him talking about mental health issues related to Twitch, the DJ dancer who was on the Ella DeGeneres show who committed suicide. And so when he made that post, Romeo, kind of felt offended because if y'all don't know, Master P earlier this year lost a daughter to fentanyl overdose. Apparently, she had substance abuse and some mental health issues and depression issues as well. So Romeo uh, took it to say, "Hey, how you going to be worried about everybody else's mental health issues and you aren't really about your own family's mental health issues?" And that kind of created this whole thing and went off. Let me see what you said here. It said, "Okay, okay. He has definitely been hustling for a while now. He's been trying to continue to keep his father's wealth growing. He wasn't lazy." I mean, like, was he though? Like, I don't know how much of Romeo's hustle was his hustle and wasn't Master P's hustle. I personally don't think that Romeo hustled. He may be hustling now, but the early stuff of the him rapping and doing all of that stuff, I don't necessarily attribute that hustle to Romeo in my personal opinion. I attribute that hustle more to his father. And so that came out because it seemed like a family issue. And Master P did respond and he made an interesting comment. When you have death in the family, and trust me, losing a sibling, the only thing worse than that is probably losing a child. And then next in line would be losing a parent. And so when you do have death in the family, whatever family issues are going on, it's going to either bring the family together or make the family rip apart at those issues. And so after Master P made this post and Romeo made this response, the next thing you know, Romeo came out and was talking about how he was used by his father by following in his father's footsteps, and now he's just broke. He don't have any cash. Now, here, here is where the discussion comes in because we all familiar. Well, I don't know if we're all familiar because a lot of people probably don't know. I honestly can't think of one Romeo song. I don't know one song at all or album. I thought about the movie like Mike, then I was like, oh snap, that was Bow Wow. So I literally don't know one Romeo song, but we're going to talk about just the things that Romeo were involved in from an early age to make money. He was definitely an artist in the music game, but his best-selling album only sold 500,000 copies. Okay, so not enough to go platinum or anything. That was his best-selling album. All the albums after that, not nearly, didn't even touch nowhere near the 500,000 sale level. He was also, I guess, the poster boy for rap snacks, which is these overly salty, terribly sodium heavy, bad for your blood pressure chips. And this is actually a video of him where back in the day on 106 in Park, he actually debuted these chips, snacks, salty ass, overly produced products. But this is him on 106 in Park actually debuting it. His face is on the bag and everything. Now that flavor probably tastes like disappointment. But this is him back in the day on 106 in Park debuting these rap snack chips, which he was the poster boy for. So he was the first person. Now they got all sorts of hip hop artists, Lil Boosie, the Migos. Who else did I say? But there's a bunch of hip hop artists on these overly saturated salty chips. But Romeo said that Master P is broke and he's really faking the funk with his finances. So the question is, how much is this is probably legit, and how much is it is probably just a petty kid being petty because he can't get access to something or don't have any money. He wasn't good at music. Was it, what was he good at? See, I know. Have you ever tried them? Those things are terrible. Like they are terrible. Every product he has is probably bad for black people. All high in sodium and sugar. Tasting like disappointment. That's the flavor of his chips. Yeah, salty tears or something. But the question is, how much is this is true and how much it isn't? Because Romeo is saying that he's just now getting residual income from being the poster boy on the rap snacks, which came out over 15 years ago. He said he's just now getting some residual income from this. And so that made me think that I don't know. I guess the best way to put it, Romeo is really asserting that a lot of the money he made when he was younger, he did not have access to. So now he's a little bit in financial straits. But he also says that his father doesn't have as much money as he's purporting to be to put out there. But the other thing is that he said he never saw a contract and he's been putting in work with his father for 15 years, almost 25 years now, because I think he's in his mid 30s and haven't seen any proceeds from that. So this brings in mind two questions. I want to play this real quick video of Master P's response. And Master P's response is actually interesting because I actually looked at a video and I was going to cue it up, but I didn't want to have too many damn videos on here. But I actually looked at the response that 50 Cent has said with regard to him and his son, and it mirrored everything that Master P plays. So I'm going to play this. It's about 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and check this out. Then we're going to just kind of talk about it and filter through. Let's see. Hold on, that's a little low. My bad. I keep pausing it. All right, that's shout out to TMZ. They get everything first. Shout out to TMZ. TMZ get everything first, and I have no clue how. Oh snap! All right, I'm gonna have to go back and make some adjustments on that. But essentially, what Master P was saying that he thought it was a grieving issue, but it's not a grieving issue. It's a money issue. He's like, it's a money issue. And he said, this is what happens when you have a child who you've tried to protect and give them everything they want. When they get older, they feel like they're entitled. And Stan. And so that was he, he crazy. I think everybody over a certain age is going to have that same sentiment. But that's essentially what Master P was saying. He really didn't even want to have to go out and be on social media to put this out there because that you could tell he looked uncomfortable saying all of that stuff on there. But this poses a question: why is it that we always see this? And I don't know. I've y'all let me know, but I've never seen a white country music singer or a Latin pop star have issues the way we consistently see entertainers and celebrities in our community have these issues with their children when their children come from a privileged position. I don't know what it is that causes that, but they all repeat and they all echo the same exact thing. The same thing that Master P said was he said, "Hey, I show love to people, but I'm not an ATM machine." He said, "I show love to people. I'm not an ATM machine. Son, you've been shining for 30 something years. So if you aren't where you want to be right now, is because you aren't listening." And I'll be honest, like, hey, hashtag I stand with P. I'm gonna be honest, I think I tend to agree with that. I, I think I agree with it. With it's probably more likely a vast majority of it is privileged children, but another part of it is it falls on the parents as well. Because let's just think about it. I don't know if y'all remember, but Romeo played basketball at I think it was UCLA, was it? He played basketball college basketball for UCLA, and he damn sure didn't get on the team because he was a great player. I mean, he was cool with DeMar DeRozan, who has been a multiple time All Star in the NBA, and his father was Master P, who probably made a nice endowment to the school. And so that is how he ended up getting this position on this basketball team. So I think it's twofold. Clearly, the children of celebrities are entitled. But the other part of it is, I think the celebrities contribute to that because early on, I mean, what was it? Yeah, I don't know if y'all ever seen these shows they got on. I don't watch them, but I know they exist. And it's like a show where it's all about the children of hip hop entertainers and producers and how they grow up in this affluent life with all of this drama. And I think that kind of facilitates to that because these parents put their kids in these positions where, hey, we always got to have a spotlight on you because, hey, if I'm, and isn't that a part of what hip hop is? Part of what hip hop is unfortunately being flashy, and part of being flashy is making sure your kids flashy. So if that's the presentation you give on your kids because you want to maintain this flashy over consumption image that you have, it's only reasonable that the kids are going to develop this sense of entitlement. And I'm not saying that, I had this conversation with someone today because I have a friend who they grew up in relatively good means. Their father owned a business, their grandparents were well off. And this person told me, I kind of wish I had a little bit more struggle when I was younger growing up. And I was like, what the hell? Like, to me, that made absolutely no sense. So when this person said, I wish I had more struggle growing up, my first question was, okay, what do you think what skill set or character trait do you think that having more struggle would have gave you that you don't have now, or that you think you need more of? Because I didn't understand it. Where I come from, I never met somebody who'd be like, man, you know what? I wish stuff was just a little bit harder growing up. I thought where I come from, everybody normally says the opposite. And so what this person told me, this was literally just an hour ago. They said, well, because I was so well off, I never really worked as hard as I probably could have when I was younger. Now, this person is, older, and I will tell you, they now have multiple businesses and startups that they're running. So credit to them. If they didn't have a hustle mentality because of the way they grew up, they damn sure developed it now. But it was interesting because, when I asked what do you think additional struggle would have gave you, because they knew that they had resources and people could get them stuff, they never worked hard when they were younger. They just always kind of did the bare minimum. They didn't do terrible in school, but they could have did better in school. And so I think that is kind of what privilege, and every parent, I don't care if y'all don't, I don't know. Some of y'all parents may not admit to this, but I'm sure my parents probably said this to me. But you break your back to give your kids more than what you have. But at some point, your child is going to do something, and it's probably going to be in that adolescent stage, young adult stage, maybe. And you're going to look at them, you're going to squint your eyes real tight, how my eyes are, and you're going to be like, man, I don't know about that kid. I hope they got what it takes because right now, God damn. That's exactly what you're gonna say and what kids make you say. So it's always that thin line to walk. So we saw what Master P said. He was like, you know what? It's not a grieving thing, because if it was a grieving thing, we could talk about it. My doors is open. His son never reached out to him. He said, but hey, I'm not an ATM machine. Once he said I'm not an ATM machine, I kind of knew, was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a money thing. And Romeo's assertions that he didn't get paid, or his assertions that he didn't get paid anything for 15 years, clearly proves this about the money. But take a look at that clip, and all of these entertainers are mimicking and saying the same thing. Now, this clip is about 2 minutes long. Now, we're going to circle back. This is a clip of 50 Cent talking about why his relationship with his son isn't bad, which is terrible because, I mean, they both got big ass heads and they look exactly alike. But take a listen to this clip. In his clip, he explained the exact same thing that Master P was explaining, when it comes to entitlement. 50s was a little bit more unique because him and his child's mother having this issue, and it developed when his son was a lot younger versus, Romeo and Master P. Romeo's a grown ass adult right now. But take a listen to what he says.
Where are you and Marquise at right now?
I don't have a relationship.
At all whatsoever?
No, all I can think of is, yeah, imagine, how do you make a privileged child feel proud or angry? Like, he comes into his own and he starts to attract the women or attract the men. I don't know, but that happens. You start picking your specifically these boys. Yeah, imagine your mom going, I forgot how to get it. Then every time you get what you ask for, how many other colors? That programming over and over. And you gotta look and say, my grandfather, proud like a snake and slid like a snake.
Yeah.
And it's because you keep seeing the boy show up.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause it, but let me give the let, let me actually give the recap. 50 Cent said, they asked him about the relationship with his son. And again, like we said, him, Dre, Master P, they're all having issues. And he said, it was a sense of entitlement. And the example he gave was a pair of shoes. He said, my son would want a pair of Jordans, and he would ask his mother for the Jordans. And he said that his son's mother would respond, well, I forgot how to get them, but it's sad that your father can't get them. So they'll call him up, he'll get the Jordans. And he said, when you do get the Jordans, because I get you what you want, you don't the next thing you think about is how many different pair I can get in different colors of this same shoe. And so, 50 Cent is alluding to the same thing that Master P is talking about, the same thing that I'm sure Dr. Dre did when he, cut off his 40-year-old daughter who had, I think, 6 grandchildren. Is it's kind of a sense of entitlement. I think the problem is, I mean, how much blame do you put on the kid versus the adult? Because I mean, let's backtrack and talk about Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre daughter was 40 years old, never really did anything a day in her life, had 6 kids with multiple fathers. And when he finally cut her off, like, at what point do you have to cut them off so they can actually learn a lesson before they're just an adult who can't take care of themselves? Because I think that's a big thing. I think as a parent, as a parent, I think you got really one job in this world as it relates to your children. Okay. And your job, and I always explain it this way: a parent's job to their child is to teach them a lesson and teach them how to survive on their own. Now, whether that lesson is going to be easy or hard, that isn't up to me as a parent. That's up to my children. If they actually listen and avoid the pitfalls I push them to avoid, the lesson that they can learn to be independent will be an easy one. But if they want to go to hard, if they don't want to listen, they're going to learn the lesson. It's just going to be a hard lesson that's going to come with a bunch of bumps and bruises. And so I think some of the parents got to take a little bit of ownership, because my son is very aware. And the only reason I speak and say my son, because my son is the closest to being a grown ass person. But my son is very aware of our stance of, you know, because I do believe, especially, I don't know, I can't speak for every community, but I feel like in the black community, we have this proclivity to say, okay, congratulations on the graduation. You turn 18. Get the hell out. and and I don't really I don't know. I'm not really that's not really my school of thought. I'm not necessarily a person who once you turn 18 and you're old enough, you need to be out on your own. It depends what a person is doing. An 18-year-old who doesn't do a damn thing is from an 18 who may be taking courses at a local community college and have a job and is actually showing responsibility. One, you probably gonna get an army brochure under your pillow and a time frame to get out. The other one is probably gonna get a lot of leverage and a lot of assistance because my level of help and support as you reach adulthood is contingent on how responsible you are as a person. So I think that's the best way to look at it. I think everybody's going to get that cold temperature. I was actually just telling my pops about that because he old school. This dude still chop wood and got a furnace, but that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother topic. How could it be cold in Hawaii? What, 70 degrees probably? Something to that effect? Nope. That's gonna be during Christmas too, yeah. Yeah, see, I think wow. See, I didn't know. I thought that was only a thing that we saw a lot of in the black culture because that's something that that was kind of the running joke. Like I can remember when I was 17 and I would wake up and I was like, "What the hell?" And it was like an army brochure under my pillow with a guy pointing at me, telling me, telling me I should be all I could be. So I didn't know that. That's interesting that you say that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was something that was common throughout different cultures. I feel like when you do that, though, if it's you potentially set your child up to be at a huge disadvantage because hey, it's tough. Hey, you're talking to somebody who moved out when he was 17. That it wasn't easy. Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, it does build your character. It does build your character, but I know for a fact I'm not going to be like, okay, this graduation dinner, son, is the last meal that your mama gonna ever cook for you, or I'm gonna ever prepare for you. So enjoy those ribs. Like, nah, I feel like that's kind of crazy to do, but a lot of parents have that mentality. So I think when you have an entitled child, the thing you got to realize is, I mean, one, part of that is going to become because you want to give them more and better than what you had. That's two. But also, I think as parents, we got to take some ownership in our children being a little bit spoiled. I know. Hey, I know. My kids have some spoiled ways to them, and I tell you a story. Once we was on I don't know if it was Canada or somewhere. I took the kids somewhere, and I remember asking my son, "Hey, how you enjoying the trip?" And he was like, my son is real lackadaisical. He was like, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. It's not all that. You want to talk about somebody who was pissed? Like, you want to talk about somebody who was pissed because I know the resources it took to get you here on this trip, and you should be appreciative. Because when I was your age, I didn't go to Canada and Hawaii. I went to Hawaii, but I went to Hawaii Avenue. It's a place in Northeast DC. Is a street, and it's not a nice street. So I think parents have to take some ownership and entitlement, but you have to find that balancing line between supporting a productive child versus providing too much support to a child who's not doing anything productive to better themselves. So I think that's a really big distinction and something that's hey, it's tough for people to do. Okay. Well, I mean, hey, I'm not saying everyone, and I think it's cool. Hey, you were pretty. Hey, being pampered is not a bad thing, and not everyone. Some people understands understand the privilege that they have, and even with that privilege, they put maximum effort to maximize it because they realize that they are in a very good situation. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Not everybody who has some economic advantage or every child who has an economic advantage is going to grow up to be like like a jerk or something like that. Uh, yeah, that kind of that hey, that happens too. I mean, I don't know, like is it's kind of like how if when people come to the same philosophy I would take if someone asked me for money is the same way I think I would help my adult children. You know what I mean? If my brother if my brother from another mother who's in the chat, shout out to Wolverine because I know this guy. But this is how I look at borrowing people, loaning people money, and this is how I will evaluate helping an adult child. If my brother in the chat came to me and was like, "Man, hey, I need to hold something because an emergency happened or something came up," it's a probably 100 out of 100% chance that whatever he asked for, I'll give it to him because one, he never asked me for nothing, but two, he has a consistent track record of doing the right thing. So if he got to the point where he needed to ask me for something, I know that it's not because of a bad decision he made or being irresponsible or something uh, like that. I know, like, how did you, survive at like to have to move out? Like, I tell you how I survived when I moved out at 17 because I was like, okay, I'm going to school and I'm gonna survive by signing off on this loan paperwork. So that was kind of how, but it's hard because I can remember even that being, in my early 20s, like, man, it's tough out there when you realize that, damn, I got to pay for everything. So, kicking your kids out at 18 isn't something that you should do as a general rule. But I feel like a lot of parents are like, hey, once you leave, me and your mother gonna get our swerve on. We'll be going out, going to the bar. And a lot of people think like that, but I think that's a really bad way to look at it. this is this comment is terrible, and I will tell you why this comment is terrible because your kids are too young for you to be thinking like that. I can at least look at when my son is graduating because he's turning 16 on Saturday. On Saturday, my son will be turning 16. So if I wanted to say, hey, I'm almost at the finish line, I would be like, yes, because it's right around the corner. Man, your kids ain't even in school yet, man. So you can't nah, you got a long road, brother. And you work. So man, that's tough. But it made you a stronger person. So I mean, that's it. That was weird as I don't know what. But that's damn, that's rough. Young people these days to be able to pay rent, not to mention college tuition and other costs of living. Yeah, when I was in the military, I saved. I had like I know for a fact when I got out of the military, I knew I was getting out the military, and I already got accepted so I could finish undergrad. And I saved about $20,000 because in the military, you don't got to do anything. When I didn't want to spend any money, I would just, I mean, I had video games and all sorts of stuff in my room. I could hang out with my boys, go buy a whole bunch of liquor and just drink that and chill. I could eat at the dining facility and didn't pay for it. So when I was getting out, I was like, okay, these last 18 months, I'm gonna just stack up a bunch of money. So I had about $20,000 saved up. And I got out at 23. You know how fast that money left my hands? That's how I was like, can you imagine being 18? That $20,000 left my hands so fast because all of the stuff that I did not have to pay for, I actually had to start paying for. All of the food that I didn't have to pay for, the health insurance that I didn't have to pay for, the housing costs that I didn't have to pay for. That $20,000 burned a hole in my pocket so fast. And I wasn't spending frivolously. It was between getting the place, paying the first and the last month rent, having time to find a job, being able to cover the expenses till I could find a job. It was so terrible. That really showed me was like, damn, it's real out here. Because yeah, when I was 17, I moved out, but it kind of didn't count because I was in that college environment. So you still kind of have a little bit of leeway. You got a place to rest your head. Then I went from there to the military. But when I got out the military, I realized like, yo, it's hard out here. it's hard out here for people to do what they need to do to survive. So it's definitely get rough. Yeah. And I think that's dope. Like I already tell you, I this is gonna be my approach, okay? And this is gonna be my approach I plan on taking with my children so long as they aren't knuckleheads. If they knuckleheads, I don't deal with. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So if my kids elect to be knuckleheads, oh, that's great. That's good to know. But if my kids elect to be knuckleheads, they're gonna get knucklehead treatment. But so long as my kids are in school and working and making good choices, not out here just being reckless, like if, for example, my son graduated and if he said, "Hey, I want to work for 1 year, or I want to take a year off before I figure out what I want to do," I'm not going to be mad at him like get out. If he works and once he get a job, my son already know what the deal is. Now that you're working, hey, anybody who lives in this house, you have to contribute. I'm collect whatever little bit of money for him that I'm going to take as his so-called rent, what I'm going to actually charge him. And when I take his money, I'm not going to take that money and spend it. I'm going to just take whatever money I charge him and I'm going to stash it aside. I'm going to stash it in a mutual fund or some type of maybe high yield savings account just so it's there and so it's growing interest. And so when it's time for him to leave and he's ready to go out on his own, I'm gonna give him all of his money back. Hey, this is all the money. Hey, this is for you. He don't even need. This is for you, so you can have a head start with what you're doing. Because my theory is, if he's doing what he's supposed to do, if he's paying me whatever a couple $100 a month out of his check, but he's also saving and doing this thing when he's ready to move out because of the moves he made. If I give him that money back, that's just going to be extra, I guess, frosting on the cake, so to speak. So he should be in a much better position. So that's kind of going to be my game plan. Yeah, yeah. Cause I mean people gonna do whatever it takes to survive. When you out there on your own, you gotta do OnlyFans. Yo, all right. Like, so if your child was an adult and they had an OnlyFans, okay? If your child was an adult, your child is in their 20s and they're living at home and they're in school and they're doing great. But at night, when you were out at work or whatever and they were at home from classes, they cut on that OnlyFans computer and they aren't doing anything sexually explicit, right? Let's just say they on there lotioning their feet or something for the creeps and the creeps out there. Would you have a problem with your adult child doing something like it's not anything sexual? They just may have on some provocatively dressed outfit and putting their feet in front of the camera. Would you have a problem with that? I know that's a crazy thing, but these are the times that we live in. Wow, I didn't even know that. But yeah, OnlyFans is a real thing. So I guess the question would got to be like, if your child was in college on the dean's list, I'm talking about your child is amazing, but they were like, okay, well, even though you helping me with college, I make money this way by doing OnlyFans. I'm not doing anything sexual, mom, because I got standards, or or dad because I got standards. But I do wear skimpy outfits and massage my feet on my OnlyFans channel for the creeps who donate to my channel. Would you have a problem with that? Like, would that really drive you crazy? Yeah, I would rather my child do OnlyFans than to work at a strip club. Not that there's anything wrong with strip clubs. Plenty of people have worked at strip clubs and have used strip club revenue to catapult them into very respectable and prestigious professions. So anybody out there who used to be on that pole life, uh, who used to be on that pole life, I'm definitely not criticizing anybody or the pole life. That's just kind of that. Yeah, he probably part of the problem. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, I agree. You have to give them the skills, but I mean sometimes people are just gonna make bad decisions, and that's the scary part. Because think about it, like I mean, Master P got more than one children, and like Damon Wayans said it best. I went to maybe this was last summer. This past summer, we went to a comedy show, and Damon Wayans, the comedian, was talking about his children. His daughter was dating an ex-convict from prison. His daughter was dating an ex-convict in prison. Then he said he had one son, and he said, I think my other son just did a Google search of my celebrity net worth is waiting for me to die. He said it's only he only got he's like I only got one son who listens to me, and that's my son Damon Jr. And that's the one who's always in the movies and playing a wife and kids. He was like his other kids don't listen to him at all. So the interesting thing is they all three grew up with the exact same privilege and in the exact same situation, but this was from their father. And his jokes were jokes, but they were jokes that were true related to his family. Some kids are gonna make better decisions than other ones. So it's it's just something that you can't pick, which is the scary thing about being a parent. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad if my daughter was a grown adult and she wore skimpy outfits and put lotion on her feet on OnlyFans and was making a good living doing it. Hey, somebody they gonna pay to see summer feet. I never looked at that site. I wouldn't know. I never looked at that site. I'm just saying that that's a viable source of income for people. I paid a lot of tuition in the strip club, man. You wow, man. That's funny. I paid a lot of tuition in the strip club. Well, it's good to know that you made a difference in the life of somebody, man. So hey, salute to you. That's respect, and that's definitely something that is commendable. There was a rumor that a pretty female lawyer had worked at a strip club during law school. I wasn't going to ask her if it were true. Yo, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, speaking of law school stories, I got an interesting law school story about a law school faculty member who allegedly worked at a strip club. Now, I'm not going to use any names to tell this story, but I think it was my 2L year in law school. We had this law professor, and you got to think law professors aren't that much older than the students. It's not like, the professors are like some geriatric 79-year-old person all the time. Like, no, some of the professors are only a few years older than the students. So there was a law professor who was gorgeous. I mean, she could have been a model, tall, beautiful complexion, glowing smile, everything that was an asset that you would want in a model, even like, you know, she had all these assets. And so there was a rumor that she was working at a strip club, and this strip club was in like, I don't know if it was in Cary or something, but it was like the next town over. Okay. Now I tell you, hey, true story. I don't know if I believe it to be false because if it were true, I was using my due diligence because I wanted to see if this were true. I wanted to see if it was true just to satisfy, not to just, be a creep or anything, but not to be a creep. But that was an actual rumor that was related to a law professor. So I know those type of things float around all the time. Oh, see, it was a place in see. Pure gold in downtown Curry. See, I never been, but the rumor was that this professor was a stripper at Pure Gold or whatever. It was a spot in Cary, and I was like, in Cary, I was like, man, I'm not really a strip club guy. I could count the amount of times I've been to strip club on maybe one hand, two hands. But I said, I'm not a strip club guy, but I think I need to go and get to the bottom of this. That's where I honed my investigative skills, trying to figure out if she was really a stripper or not. So, but yeah, those type of things happen. I mean, but if you like, I mean, I don't know. Law professors are just like everyone. I assume probably 70%. The general population is like 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So I automatically assume that 60% of any demographic probably is consistent with the overall public. 60% of people in the NBA probably live paycheck to paycheck. 60% of law professors probably live paycheck to paycheck. And because people live paycheck to paycheck, it's not uncommon for people to probably feel the need to have to shake their ass for cash to make a living. And hey, no, no, no judgment for whatever adult decides to do that's legal to make income from this guy over here. But I mean, it is terrible because law professors most times make a good salary, but hey, a good salary isn't indicative. Yeah, she was okay. See, I didn't know. Okay, adjunct. She was an adjunct, so it might have been true. She was an adjunct professor, so she probably wasn't making those six-figure salaries that the rest of those professors were making at that institution. So it's quite possible she probably was, and she couldn't have been far removed from being out of law school herself. And so, but I think that's a do do the research. Yeah, man, that's where I hone my investigative skills. It started with trying to find out if she was really stripping because I was going to get to the bottom of that. Okay, so tenure is 120. Yeah, so I believe she definitely was an adjunct. She definitely was an adjunct because it was like her first year teaching. See, that's it. Yeah, I mean, and like, okay, so what would be the difference to be like? I mean, I don't know. What would be the That's actually one a dope way to make money. Like if you're a clown or a musician or something like that. But there are people in all professions who don't use their money correctly. But to kind of circle this thing back is we can't be too we have to the goal is to give your kids better than what you have. Okay. We already got that. We all know that that's the bottom line. But the goal is to do it in a way where they understand the value and and the need to have a good work ethic, to have some integrity, to have some pride in what they do. It's funny because I was proud of my son when he got his report card and he was on honor roll, and I asked him, and I don't know, I asked him, and it was a test because I wasn't gonna get him anything, but I asked him, I said, "Oh man, that's a good job. You killed it last semester, man. What do you want?" And he was like, "I don't want anything. That's what I'm supposed to do." And I said, "Good." I said, "I'm glad you answered because I wasn't getting your ass nothing, but you gave the right answer." And so it's little things like that that we have to do as parents to, hey, we're gonna give our kids more, but we want to make sure that they value working, that they have a sense of accomplishment, they have a sense of pride. Nothing feels better than when you work to accomplish something. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I would love for someone to have handed me a brand new car as a 16-year-old. But when I was 16 and I was doing that manual labor down south in the field, which was the worst job I ever had in my life. But when I came back and made that purchase for my first car, I had such a sense of pride. And I took care of that car because I knew the work and I had the blisters on my hand from working in the field to I had the blisters on my hand from working in the field to actually make that purchase. So we have to have that balance, but we also can't be too quick to push our kids out. And I think that, like I said, it happens in all communities. I've seen it a lot in my community, in the black community. And I feel like if you have a child that's being productive and you're really fast to push them out of the house, you're putting them at an economic disadvantage. And my goal is I want to give my child every head start possible. And I especially want to give them a head start in things that they're trying to do if they're taking the effort and making good, smart decisions and choices. But yeah, it's terrible. It's a travesty. It's a terrible pattern of African American celebrity having an entitled kid, and as they come into adulthood, those relationships falling apart. And some of the ownership is on both sides. Some of that blame falls a little bit on the parent, for you got to live with the monster you created. But some of that ownership falls on the children because as they come into adulthood, as you come into adulthood, and I'm gonna leave it with this. I remember when I was a child and my parents actually got a divorce. It's funny because I told my father this story. Because I stayed with my mother, I probably at that point as a child thought that 80% of the situation that we lived in was attributable to that divorce, and I directly blamed my father for it. And that's just because he was the person who wasn't in the household. So when you live with the person who's not in the household, the person who you live with has home field or home court advantage. So whatever rhetoric may or may not be said is something that the child is going to buy into. But what happened as I got older, as I became an adult and went out into the world, and I kind of look back and realized that I was like, you know what? It Yeah. When I was younger, I had it all wrong. This wasn't a dad thing. It wasn't a the kids caused this thing. You know what it was? It was both of my parents was crazy as hell. So they were just better off apart. So the other part is the parents got to take ownership for the monster that they created. But these children, as they come into adulthood, I'm talking about their mid 20s, 30s, 40s, like they gotta grow the hell up. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody entitled to give you anything. And I once watched a documentary about the founder of UPS. And it was so beautiful because the founder of UPS, they interviewed like these children, and I think I can't remember the name of the documentary, but they interviewed these children of these people who they were heirs essentially to these huge companies, UPS, FedEx, and they interviewed the children. And this guy's daughter, the head of UPS, said, "Oh, our father don't give us anything. The only thing our father gives us, he gives all of his kids the same thing. All of his kids get the same thing. Their undergraduate education is paid for. That's it. While you're in undergrad, as long as you're making passing grades, he pays the bill for your housing costs and for your tuition." He was like, "That's it. After that, he thinks that we have a blank slate and we start at zero." And so it was another guy who was the son of like the founder of FedEx or the CEO of FedEx. And he was like the executive vice president. But they asked him, they was like, "Where'd you start at?" And his father actually made him start like loading the back of a truck. Like, no, if you want to run this company or be in a leadership position, you have to know how everything works. He was cleaning bathrooms. He was loading the trucks out there in the cold with people on the front line. He had to know the entire process from start to finish. So I feel like real affluent multimillionaires and billionaires who understand money, they take efforts to try to impart those things on their children. But I feel like the entertainers who come into the money, they because they're entertainers and what they do is based on an image, they go along the lines of I'm going to give my child everything so they can look flossy. It was two completely different schools of thought. Multi-billionaire FedEx CEO owner only gave his kids college tuition money and room and board, and that was it. The FedEx guy made his kids clean the urinals, mop the floor, do all of that stuff. But a rapper's kid is going to put them on a show called Growing Up Hip Hop so everybody can see their ballin' ass Sweet 16 party where they got diamond sprinkles on their birthday cake. And that is what distinguishes the two. That's why we see this common pattern amongst entertainers. Unfortunately, it's relatively pervasive amongst black entertainers, but we really don't see it in other communities. Let's look at the other side. Let's take Donald Trump for example. And I think this would be a good way to close this out. Let's take a look at Donald Trump, okay? No matter what people say about Donald Trump as a businessman, right? And we all know the story. He tells the story of his father. He said his father gave him a small loan of $1 million, but that definitely wasn't the case. They did studies to show that Donald Trump inherited a huge estate, and he had a lot of failed business ventures. He lost a lot of that money. There was one study out there that said it was purported if he would have just invested that money in the market and not did anything, he would have made more than what he made in his failed business ventures. So even someone like Donald Trump, who was handed everything, I think he kind of has that little entitlement privilege, but we got to give him credit. Hey, that dude accomplished whose accomplishments were more? Fred Trump building the Trump empire and the brand and becoming a multimillionaire, or Donald Trump actually becoming president? For me, I think that is probably that's an amazing story that Donald Trump actually became president when you look at where he came from and what his background was. But that goes to show Donald Trump kind of grew up in that entitled environment. Other entertainers' kids grow up in that entitled environment, and but very few of surpass the fame or surpass what their parents done. And I'm gonna give I gotta give Donald Trump credit on that one. That dude became the president, the most powerful man in the damn free world. That's pretty impressive. All of these people we're talking about in these stories, I don't know. I would love to see Romeo and 50 Cent's son do better than them, but that's a tall order, a tough task to fill. So, hey, don't kick it. Bottom line from this story, when your kids turn 18, Wolverine, don't kick them out. Like, see what type of children you have, see if they're doing something productive. Let's try to put people in a position to win. But if they ain't doing anything, you slide that army brochure right up underneath their pillow. I think that's the bottom line and the takeaway from this. As always, hey, I appreciate y'all tuning into this video. Y'all make sure y'all have a good weekend. And it's going to be actually interesting. I'm going to do a closeout video on the 30th where I'm going to have a guest on and we're going to talk about closing out the finances on the 30th. Of finances, end of the year, what should you do to close out your financial situation to kind of reflect and what you should look forward to moving forward. So I hope y'all tune into that. Y'all take care. Be blessed. Peace. Uh-oh, let me see what Twan said. Yeah, I agree. But that's to your comment. I think that's why I give Donald Trump a lot of credit. That dude, I give Donald Trump a lot of credit because I think Donald Trump, he fumbled the ball early on and often, but him becoming president, that erases all of the business failures. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for what may or may not happen in the future, but I gotta give him credit for that. When you have a very successful parent, it's very hard for the child to surpass what the parents done. And I think that he did that in that example. Yeah, have a good evening. Take care. Terrible, man. Don't kick them babies out, man. Let the babies get to kindergarten, bro. Y'all be safe. Peace.